Yes, namaste to all. I'm Dr. Malladi Srinivas Sastry, and I'm a consultant psychiatrist currently working in Visakhapatnam. I think most of you know me anyway. So thank you for really your continuous support in attending these webinars, which I believe are very important anyway. Let us start with narrating this story. A girl called Abhignata. Abhignata actually is a confident girl who actually wants to do her best, but world doesn't allow her to be herself, right? So a girl whose complexion doesn't color her life. So the story goes like this. Abhignata is playing happily under the sun with other girls, and the grandmother comes screaming, "You silly girl, running around underneath the sun isn't going to help you get married. It's already bad that you're so dark. A troubled future will be all that you will gain from such carelessness." So she was admonishing her. This is a usual occurrence for Abhignata to be reprimanded by her grandmother, while she would often ignore and continue to tan under the sun. That's what kids do, right? They don't care. They want to continue to play. Another day at school, our protagonist was bounding across the grounds again as usual. And so soon she was engulfed by a crowd of students flocking around her because she is a popular girl. An onlooking teacher angrily beckoned her, saying, "Abhi, you're as restless as a boy. Stop cooking yourself under the sun all the time. You're already," and she paused because she knew that she was going to cross limits. But that's what tends to happen. We have something going on underneath in our mind, coming from lots of prejudice, maybe, or perhaps even out of genuine concern, but we realize that the words are not coming out right. So she stopped. So her teacher abruptly paused, a look of embarrassment clouding her stern features. Abhignata stared at the tiny rocks in front of her left foot and didn't say a word. She's getting used to this. So emotions sharpened her teacher's voice as she gathered herself and continued to say, "Look, dear, it's for the best. I'm just looking out for you." So she was expressing her concern, a genuine concern. She was very kind hearted, but I guess colored with a few kind of societal expectations, perhaps. Another day at home, the grandmother and Abhignata's mother, Pallavi. A typical day, perhaps preparing dinner, and they were having a conversation, a normal conversation, which Abhignata overhears. The grandmother says to Pallavi, "Who is ever going to want to marry that girl of yours, Pallavi? Leave her alone a little longer and she'll become a walking crow." Hurt, Abhignata is kind of now seeing that things are piling upon her, and now she can see tears rolling down her ears. Perhaps until now she was able to put up a brave face, but a constant reminder of her color seems to be getting a bit too much on this young mind. Pallavi, the mother, perplexed and worried about her child, tried to shift her attention to the vegetables she was slicing. The mother just carried on with her work, didn't say a word. Well, time flies, years go past, and our dear Abhignata has reached 10th standard, 10th class. And her entire grade was excited, not just because they reached the 10th class, but one of them would be made school captain. And there seems to be a buzz that there was a good chance Abhignata would be made school captain because she is a very popular girl among the students. So they were saying today, principal will announce school captain. Abhignata may be made school captain. The doubts and whispers were momentarily put out when the selections were over and the choice would be declared. But surprisingly, things didn't turn Abhignata's way. So there was a conversation she was overhearing. Abhignata was extremely close, wasn't she? But she ended up becoming the vice captain. Well, a good leader needs to look good if they want to be looked up to, I guess. What do you say? So the conversation went on. Though people were careful to ensure that none of this actually went through Abhignata's ears, she already understood the bigotry of the decision. She pretended to smile at the people who kept congratulating her. You know, they have a pitying look on their faces. She knew that. She could understand that. So a day has come when she was wondering. Now she is a grown-up girl, no more a kid. A grown-up girl who's able to see the ways of the world. Why do people judge me by my dark skin? She was wondering, sitting at a pond or at a nice evening all by herself. Can they not look beyond my complexion? She was wondering. And she pondered on and on. Days passed upon these reflections. I will end the story here. It's not the end particularly, but I will pause here. I'll pause here for us to contemplate, empathize with Abhignata. Why do people judge me by my dark skin? Can they not look beyond my complexion? Is how she is left wondering. And we will see the end of the story later on. But now we will move ahead to contemplate on this particular story. And I want to hear from you all your views of the story and how this affects your emotions and your thoughts. So we can do it in two ways. One, you can either raise your hand to speak out, or you can actually put your thoughts in the chat box. Okay, well, this is a little tricky now. It is entirely up to you whether you want to kind of talk of your memories from your personal experience. And I'll really leave it to you. You either may put it in the chat. So does this story remind you of any memories from your own personal experiences? Right. So now I know I'm giving you a lot of homework here. Try and assess their relation to Abhignata and how they impacted on her life. State what they could have done differently. Okay, so let's look at the story itself and the characters in the story, who are the mother, Abhignata herself, grandmother, teacher, and the students. There may be more, but we are going to stick to the story. There is a particular scene, so there's a particular scene where the grandmother is actually kind of making those kind of the repetitive labeling and the raising the concerns about the color, marriage, and so on. So when the mother kept herself silent while Abhignata was overhearing. So looking at that particular scene itself,
Yeah.
what could have been, let's open to everybody, what could have been done differently by the mother, or what could have been the impact of her not doing anything about the grandmother's taunts? What could have been the impact of it on Abhignata herself, particularly the way she looks up to the mother?
Abhignata will think that mother is also agreeing with her grandmother. That's what she will feel if the mother is silent.
Yes.
So ఇక్కడ ఏం చెప్తున్నా అంటే గ్రాండ్ మదర్ జనరేషన్ ఈస్ లైక్ దట్. సో వీ కెనాట్ ఎక్స్పెక్ట్ హర్ టు డూ ఇట్ ఎనీవే డిఫరెంట్లీ. So I don't
Okay.
want to go to the grandmother at all on any scale because that's what
Mm-hmm.
she knows.
Yeah.
But the mother could have responded. Mother could have
Mm.
done something there to
So
protect
that's,
the
yeah,
child.
that's true. So that is
That's
an
what I think.
example. That is an example I can relate to, where what I'm expecting from you is look at it, look at this as an example where Abhignata would have felt kind of let down by the mother. How can't my mother, my own mother, stand up to me, say something? That's something that would have crossed her mind. The other thing is, does my mother also think the same?
Yes.
So that's
Yes.
another thing that possibly she may be feeling.
అదే
Bhavani ji?
అండి.
Okay, so I'm going to now go into some kind of tips and discussion aspects. I'm going to quote American Psychological Association here. This is all common sense, but it's important to see that it comes from a recognized body. Protecting our children, role of adults. So children depend on many adults as they grow up. Parents, relatives, teachers, and childcare workers all provide children with love, support, and guidance. No one wants to see children grow up with fear, anger, or neglect. But no one is born knowing how to care for children. So let's remember that. No one is born knowing how to care for children. But having said that, there are certain instincts which help us. Sometimes we make mistakes that hurt them. Whatever you are, whether you are a parent, a teacher, a relative, or a caregiver, you can make a difference and help the children you love grow up in a caring and loving environment. Adults don't have to be perfect, just willing to listen, learn, grow, and change. And that's another important thing. I actually stress this aspect in my webinars, particularly the Discover Your Inner Potential one. I start off saying about the burden of perfection. We can aim to be perfect, but at the same time, shouldn't lay too much emphasis and burden ourselves on reaching perfection and staying perfect. Staying perfect is nearly impossible. Reaching perfection perhaps is possible. But then we are never going to be perfect. So that's another thing. Am I a good parent, and so on and so forth? Those things, of course, it's a point of reflection. But if you are in doubt, there's nothing wrong in discussing with friends and others who you think are equipped to help you. So I think this is a little repetition. What relevant role have they played in this story? Abhignata herself, could she have done anything different? Well, she's a young girl. I think she has done as well as anybody can expect. She stayed strong throughout and had understandably shown vulnerability at times when she felt everything was falling on her shoulders very heavily. So I think looking at the roles, I think she's done well for herself. Grandmother, as Bhavaniji was writing in the chat, she's not evil, just ignorant. Yeah, unfortunately, that's the case I see as well. Mother, I think she's torn. She's torn between she wants to help the child, but she is also possibly the hierarchy kind of thing, I guess, maybe can't say a word against the mother-in-law, or sometimes it's difficult to even um, figure out what is true and what is not, because for an emotionally burdened mother at that particular point of time, it may all look very confusing how to handle these kind of complex situations. So she needs help in terms of, at least, let's say, speaking to the husband, having a word with a child later on, saying, look, daughter, I know people keep saying these kind of things. Just don't take them to heart. Always remember that I'm there to help. I know I always love you. It doesn't matter to me about this kind of color and all those kind of things. So that's her role. That's her role, to sit with the child and reassure her and so on. Teacher, on the other hand, um, I think teachers, definitely teacher possibly, if that is what, I'm not saying that all teachers do this, but I think we have seen some cases where teachers may actually make some kind of this kind of judgments and judging others based on their inadequacies. And surely I think teachers' role is to make sure that they are sensitive to the child's needs, and surely if there is anything that they have to discipline, particularly the child particularly, then they have to make sure that they are drawn aside, not in front of the entire class. That's another mistake that sometimes teachers may end up doing. The entire class is witness to the kind of things that a teacher may end up saying. So those kind of things can also be avoided. And the classmates, well, they are young, but I guess some responsibility has to be on their shoulders as well. A lot of times, in fact, yesterday I was doing this particular thing about when you know the truth and you don't stand up for yourself, and when you know the truth of another person and you don't stand up for them, and we know we are doing something wrong there, and we will feel guilty, and that guilt actually troubles us later on as well. So classmates shouldn't get into this kind of um, you know as a ganging up, for instance, ganging up or joining the peers um, in their own ways to taunt, or sometimes even being silent spectators. Those are all seen. Those are all seen by somebody like Abhignata. She would be able to see all those things, and that doesn't help in relations. Okay, the trust factor is then lost. Even my closest friends haven't stood up for for me, and that's the trust gone. And this is how relations may be affected at a later time. So yes, they cared for her, they were worried for her future, but there was labeling. That's the thing we are talking about here. So there's labeling, even if they had good intentions, not standing up for the daughter as the mother was doing. Restrictions, as in, for instance, don't go into the sun, don't play in the sun. Those are all restrictions. Bias based on prejudice and conditioning. If you keep talking of the same thing, you're dull, you're good for nothing, you're good for nothing. Perhaps the conditioning happens to such an extent that the person internalizes that to be the truth, and assumes that they're not good for anything. So that's the conditioning that may happen. We'll look at a couple of examples here. Ellen DeGeneres, who famously does that talk show, I forgot the name of it actually. Anyway, doesn't matter. So I think she's made something important, an important mention. The problem with labels is that they lead to stereotypes, and stereotypes lead to generalizations, and generalizations lead to assumptions, and assumptions lead to stereotypes again. So it's a vicious cycle, and after you go around and round a bunch of times, you end up believing that all vegans only eat cabbage. These are all stereotypes. So well, let's look at how that plays. In Abhignata's case, being dark-skinned, you are dark-skinned, you are like a crow. That's a label. The generalization is all dark-skinned are not good-looking. So that's the generalization. And the assumption then is, therefore, no one will marry you. Okay? So I'm sure we can all easily relate to this. The label, the generalization, and an assumption. We'll look at another example as well, apart from the dark skin, a little later. And how do the adults' emotions play up? They may be worried. There's a fear. Maybe the grandmother is afraid. How will my granddaughter get married? That's all she can think. And anger towards the child as well. And this reflects on the adult's communication or the action. So you are dark skinned is the communication. Sun will turn you darker. Who will marry you? All those kind of, this is all communication. So this reinforced, when reinforced frequently, this affects the child's self-esteem and confidence, potentially causing mental health problems such as depression. It's not unusual at all. This is what we as professionals see. Where may labeling happen? So yes, it happens at home. It happens at school. It happens in playground or anywhere where the kids meet up also. This is beyond adult control. I mean, what kids do to each other, we can only monitor from a distance. Of course, the kid still has to go back to play because they want to play with their friends. Social media, very true. So let's look at some of these areas where we get labeled according to skin color. It could be weight, speech related issues, stutter and those kind of things. Academic intelligence, and that's a huge preoccupation parents have, particularly in modern India. I would say modern India because I don't see that much of a problem in the West. Modern India, academics is everything else. A 4-year-old has to start writing alphabets in English. It can't be Telugu. It has to be English. And all those kind of funny expectations. Physical activity. We'll look at what kind of labels as well. I'll ask you what labels. Disability, social status, culture, linguistic differences. So let's look at some labels. Of course, I had to water down some of the labels. It's not going to be nice to put labels here, but it tends to be according to the color. Yes, fat, skinny. So even the skinny people get taunted. Stutter, dull, idiot, slow, slow as a slug. No? Are you deaf? Are you
స్కిన్నిగా
blind?
ఉంటే రవణారెడ్డి అనేవారండి ఆంధ్రాలో.
Ravanareddy.
రవణారెడ్డి అనేవారు,
Okay,
కొంచెం పొడుగ్గా
yeah.
స్కిన్నిగా ఉంటాయి.
Yeah. So disability, limp is one thing. For instance, we had a Kirana store owner. Funnily, the store name was something else. Nobody remembers the name. It's only called as Sottodikottu, the limp guy's shop. That is how the shop was known. Can you believe that? And then according to slang, accent, and moral conduct is almost like you're a liar, you're a thief, and that's also something we often hear, even at home. If something is said, you're just a liar. So those are very easily used. These are often used to put down the person so that they stop their argument. A lot of times these labels are also used almost like to control the argument. It's like personalizing the attack, so the other person feels humiliated and defeated. So another label that we can see is when somebody is called as a stupid, for instance. Never does anything right is the generalization. So no stupid person will do anything right is the generalization. Therefore, you'll never succeed in life. Okay, so that's an assumption. I think we heard. So if we go back to this example, then so typically again the adults' communication, the kind of communication, the wrong words used could be "you are stupid," "good for nothing," and this is something which we often hear. Good for nothing. Good for nothing is something. If a child keeps on hearing, the self-esteem is going to be affected. You will not pass your exams. You're only fit to wash dishes. That's typically something else that a boy may hear. No one will employ you. And then this may also lead to verbal and physical abuse as well, because of the anger. And reinforced frequently, this affects the child's self-esteem and confidence. So is what we have seen. Interestingly, If this repeats, like the conditioning that I was speaking about, if we keep on saying you're good for nothing, you're good for nothing, and ultimately if the child turns out to consider that to be the truth and doesn't achieve much of progress, that actually comes true. Even if initially the child was fully capable and didn't have any social disability as such in terms of functioning, it may actually come true. So how do we blame them? It's not the child's fault. It's possibly the constant taunting which ended up leading to the same result that the adult feared. Okay. Okay, I'll skip this. So this is something I have written down, and I'm going to present it in a better format here. See, who are all part of a child's life? We have adults, and we have children, and we have other things as well. Adults, it could be parents, grandparents, extended family, and others could be other adults are teachers and tutors, tuition masters and those kind of people, neighbors and friends of parents, maids, drivers, and others, anybody else. They're all adults playing a part in child's life. Any of them can have an easily a significant influence on a child's life, positively or negatively. Children, it could be siblings, cousins, neighborhood children, class or school kids. Of course, pets are not going to have a great impact, neither do toys. Books definitely may have a positive impact, and gadgets and media may have both. Nowadays, actually, a huge preoccupation, almost to the level of addiction, is only going to have a negative impact overall on a child's life, their physical activity levels, and so on. So that this is what a child's life is like in current times. I don't think I've missed any others. Do you think there's anybody else who plays a part in child's life? Anybody else that I have missed? Or is this comprehensive enough? Anybody? I guess it is comprehensive enough. Okay. And then we'll look at this particular, grandparents were included, Bhavanaji, yeah. And who may label a child and how may a child respond? Now let's look at this way. When a child faces a label or a taunt, whom do they inform or share with? Or when do they not inform or share is what matters here. See, if they think it is a minor issue or that nothing can be done, they may not inform anybody. If they feel embarrassed to talk about it, even the very mention of that word to even somebody they love, if they feel that it is so embarrassing, they don't want to talk about it, or they're afraid what the parents may say or somebody else may say, then they won't talk about it. If the parents and teachers are perceived to be not approachable, then also they won't share. And if the parents and the teachers are the ones who label or share the same views as others who label them, then also we have a problem. So now you can easily see how certain times a lot is missed, and the child grows into an adult only to talk about these problems to the professional they see, and they haven't even opened their mouth. Until then, they have not said a single word to anybody else, but they continue to face the problem. Okay. And the other thing, if anyone bullies or labels or teases, then what do? They may actually keep quiet. They may protest or give it back. If they're strong enough, they may protest or give it back, or typically report to parents, siblings, or teachers. And who all can label? It's the parents, grandparents, extended family. It could be the other adults that have may have mentioned. It could be the children. I don't think pets will label. They can't. Toys won't label. They can't. Books may label, depending on the messaging that they have, and the gadgets and the media that we gadgets. When I say we're talking about nowadays smartphones and the media. Is that fair kind of summary of this aspect? Can I hear people's comments, please? Yes, says Bhavani ji. Yes. Characters from stories or scriptures that parents tell them also may have an impact. Okay. Labeling in that sense. All right. Yeah. Okay. Anybody else want to say anything about this aspect? So life throws its own challenges in its own way. On most occasions, important people in child's life shape them positively, and that's most occasions. However, the same people or different ones may also impact on child's life negatively. So who holds the biggest responsibility in child's life? It's the parents, guardians, teachers, the child himself or herself. So if the adults are never available or not approachable, perceived to join the abuser or labeler, what does the child do? Withdraws. May withdraw, turn to toys, talk to self, write journal, this diary writing thing, may not communicate at all, or may actually behave in a way which is dysfunctional, dysfunctional communication or dysfunctional behavior. And more serious, it could turn to low self-esteem and low confidence and depression, self-harm, and feel vulnerable. And as adults, what general measures should be taken to identify the problem of abuse and labeling and to prevent such things happening? So what can we do? I think given the time, I'll just speed ahead. And also, what general measures should be taken to open and have an effective communication? So, I mean, we need to look at all these things. So, as an adult, I need to spare time to spend with my child to make sure that the child is okay. I mean, we do this often. Are you okay? If they're sitting sulking or if their behavior has changed dramatically in the last 1 week or so, I would want to find out what's happening in a tactful way. If they're not saying anything, I can just ask them, what's happening? Is there something wrong? Did something happen at school? Are you okay with your friends? Is there something we can do to help you? Tactfully, we can ask them and find out. And once we know, it is our responsibility to see how do we help the child prevent such things happening. Yesterday, I was actually having a WhatsApp chat with one of our participants here. And I was wondering, I was actually commenting to this, basically saying, I think he had a valid point. He basically said, how long can we protect a child? Isn't it child's responsibility to find the resilience and learn to help themselves? And what will be the role of a parent? This is the point that was made, and it's a very good point. As long as a parent is available for the child to communicate these issues, I think we have done half our job. It doesn't have to be that we have to intervene in every child's problem in their life. We can actually monitor them from a distance. And if things are really going out of hand, that is when we actively have to intervene and help out. Otherwise, we being available for them to talk about anything that happens in their life is all that matters to a large extent. So that's where the open and effective communication comes into play. And we have to be non-judgmental. When the child comes saying something, and if we look to be judgmental, then the child stops. They would hesitate henceforth to speak openly. So all these matter. Confidentiality. If the child tells you something and you leak that information to everybody else, how will the confidentiality be maintained? The trust is gone.
Can I add something? Sorry to
Yes,
interrupt
yes,
you.
Manasa, yeah.
So I think for me, the way I understand it, the most important thing, apart from, I mean, all these are also extremely important. But when somebody shames you for being, shames the child for being a certain way and says, yeah, I mean, I already told you, you are like that. And, or, you know, blaming them, like, you know, blaming, for example, when a rape happens, right? They say that, you know, it's because you are wearing provocative clothes. It's like that. So you are inviting these comments. So something is wrong with you. If that is said, I think that is the worst possible thing to say, right? To a child who's coming and saying, you know, this is what my classmate said. And then they go like, they blame the child instead of doing, even if they don't do anything good, this, at least this can be avoided, is what I feel.
Yes, and a very usual scenario when somebody faces abuse in their childhood, particularly sexual abuse, and they are never believed, and the belief doesn't even happen. Even the family, a lot of the times, would be not believing it. And that becomes very difficult for the victim to comprehend why nobody trusts. And this is exactly what I'm saying. So the judgmental aspect. Did I do anything wrong that I've invited these people to trouble me? It's not an automatic thought. It comes only when people make those kind of references. Did you do something to invite them? Did you do something provocative? Did you do something? Why? And so on and so forth. I mean, those are, and that conditions the child and it doesn't help. So Ginu says, someone I know practices weekly sessions with children. During that session, the children can share anything and everything with a guarantee that there won't be a retaliation, no punishment for a mistake too. Interesting. Are these sessions like informal, or are they formal structured sessions? Do you know?
It's a family session where the mother and father sits and talks with the children. That's all. This has been going on until, I think, even after they became 18 and older than 18.
Okay,
that became a culture there.
Nice, nice. That's good. That's good to hear. Okay, so the total acceptance of a child with no conditions apply clause. Let your child not be your easy target for your own problems, and deal your problems yourself. Your child is not your punching bag. Show that you love and care and build a trusting relation. Even if we don't agree with the situation that a child is narrating, it sometimes can be very difficult in such situations. There's nothing wrong in at least saying, look, I can understand where you are coming from, but we don't need to say, I don't believe you. And so instead we can use words like, yeah, I can understand where you are coming from. And that helps a lot, that kind of communication.
Sometimes it's hard to say, I can understand where you're coming from. So in that case, maybe we can just take a pause and let's talk about this later.
Yes.
So that we can deal with our own thoughts about the situation.
Yes.
And then get back to it.
Very true. So we can also pause. We don't need to feel that we have to give a response there and then. And we can, I think it's all about using our own kind of approach very maturely in handling it. If the child is expecting a quick resolution because they are impatient, they are worried, they're so kind of anxious and troubled, you know, so in that situation, maybe we don't have the luxury of time. We may have to do something at least to kind of help them at that time. But at the same time, we are not committing by saying something which we don't mean, or total acceptance of the child. Okay.
Yeah, total acceptance of the child.
So total acceptance of the child is something we have to, I call this as a package deal. You know, when a child is born, and you're disappointed with the color of the child, and you're disappointed after a little while that they're growing up and they are not as intelligent, or even worse, they may actually have some disability. There's so many kind of things that go through our mind as a parent, and there could be expectations from the extended family. In fact, I've seen worse, blaming the mother for the birth of a disabled child. All those things actually are very troubling. So let's not look at the extremes, but at least let's look at the normal bell curve most people, most kids would be going through. So I call this as a package deal, because let's say you bought a holiday for the family, 3 days, 4 nights in Goa, okay? And these are all the things: welcome drink on arrival, 2 full days sightseeing, 1 morning boat cruise, meals as per plan. So that's the deal. Now you are on this holiday and suddenly you're asking, please extend, add 1 more night, and I want 2 more boat cruises. That won't be allowed. Whatever is in the package deal, you have to accept it. There's nothing beyond that. So your child is like a package. You can't expect more than what the package holds. That's the design that they are born with for this life. I believe in the Karma Siddhanta, and this life is particularly going to be, there's a purpose, the way a person is born, and that has to be accepted, particularly by the parents. So total acceptance of the child has to come from that perspective. So just as you are not perfect nor gifted, don't expect your child to do miracles. Accept the child as it is. Accept their weaknesses just as you would accept their strengths. Don't expect them to fulfill your dreams. Sorry. You could not fulfill in your life, and we see that a lot. And this parent would have not even attended school or college regularly, but they are insisting that the child does IIT or becomes a doctor. Have they reflected upon why they have had a life that they had? So sometimes that perspective is missing. So expecting the child to fulfill their own dreams which were unfulfilled. And parents and teachers should remind themselves that in this life, children choose us, and they have entrusted this important job to guide them in the right path. The least we should do is to raise them as confident and happy individuals. So the children were born to this set of parents because they had high hopes. Well, I won't say high hopes, the usual hope and expectation that as a parent, they should give them a good life, or a teacher to guide them in the right way. So we should do that as a job entrusted upon us. And some tips to improve self-confidence here. So we need to introspect and see if we need to change the way we think. As an individual, let us say, for instance, there is some criticism that I am facing. And how do I know whether that's valid criticism or not? At least the least I can do is to introspect and see if there is something I can change. So if there is something I can change with, I should make an effort to change, and rather than being resistant to it. And we need to care for ourselves, care for yourself. Surround yourself with people who make you feel good. There's absolutely no point in making heroic attempts to be part of some group who do not even want to look eye to eye with you. What's the point? So there's nothing brave about it. Instead, figure out who are those people who you are happy with and who you think are going to be playing an adverse role. And we can use this, implement this on a regular, in everywhere. I mean, whether it's work, friend circle. Accept yourself. I think that's another thing. Learn to forgive others, as anger only hurts you more. And develop a routine. Be factual when you speak. Always do your homework before you do anything. Okay, these are kind of general kind of tips. And then stand up for yourself. Nowadays we have campaigns, dark is beautiful. It's not a campaign against fair skin. Stay unfair, stay beautiful, it says here. And then another one, stay unfair, stay beautiful. Of course, Nandita Das is one of those beautiful actresses I always admire for her acting skills. And she is beautiful. So now we come back to Abhignata standing up for herself. We are coming to the end of the story. So where did we leave the story? Abhignata was reflecting upon why is everybody so preoccupied with my dark skin? Can they not look beyond it? Remember, Abhignata is a talented girl. All the children would flock around her, play with her. And she was a good candidate to become the school captain as well. So she was wondering, why can they not see me beyond the dark skin? There's so many things that I can offer. So there that she was lying, sitting there quietly looking at the river, the water. Yet from this smudginess, this haziness, something finally became clear to Abhignata, that she was tired of hiding her fairness cream strident face from others, because she was afraid it would affect others' perception of her. And there she came out. So our brave little girl decided she didn't want to be the rock that broke down a bit more each time a wave lashed out at her. She was going to be the ocean itself, powerful and restless, and proud of its restlessness. So she said to herself, "It is important that I know who I am and stand up for myself. I shall no longer let myself be pulled down by anyone. It feels good to be free finally." And that's how Abhignata carried on doing all those good things that she can do with her life. That's where we come to an end. Okay, so I'll take leave then. If we do conduct more workshops for those who are new to us under the banner Soham in Development. And some of the usual workshops are Bring Out the Best in You, the Sanatana Dharma way. We do it in both Telugu and English. And we have a Dive Inwards series, which includes Discover Yourself and Discover Your Inner Potential. And we have also been conducting some webinar interviews, connecting dots from past to future, and we invite guests to talk about ancient heritage that we have and find its relevance in current times as well. Okay, thank you so much once again for joining in, and hopefully we'll meet up again another time for another story to convey mental health themes. Thanks a lot. Take care.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Andy.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.